Well, welcome back to the drawing room. Never thought I'd be able to do this again. This thing kept acting up, and it's been a bright pain in the, well, you know where. Thank you ever so much for all your messages of support, though, about the various problems I've been having and not wanting me to disappear. One viewer even said, "Don't disappear because the whole place will turn to Shiite." Oh dear. Yes. Well, it's very nice to know that I'm that well thought of. And Radio G1DRP and David F. and Fuzzy Bobbles have all been in touch and have even very kindly offered me equipment to replace this kit if it came to that. And it's wonderful to know that I'm that well thought of, and thank you ever so much for thinking of me. And you never know that, that equipment might well end up being used. It would be nice, actually. Now, it turns out that the problems I've been having with the interweb have been shared with various neighbours down the road because they've been having computer problems too, and even the old dear downstairs has had trouble with her telephone crackling away like mad sometimes, and she can't get a dialing tone, all this sort of thing. Eventually, the men from BT came, British Telecom, and spent 2 days fiddling about with a big old iron box over the road and eventually replaced it. This iron box, it was a junction box, probably been there over 100 years because this street was one of the first to get the telephone as it goes in the town. And I understand that the number here was 18. So you had to wind the handle, and when the operator replied, ask for 18 if you wanted to speak to him. Good Lord, another world, isn't it? So they've replaced the old cast iron boxes with new ones because after being there for 100 years, the seals were pretty shot at on the doors, and damp was getting in there and causing all kinds of funny things to happen, as you could imagine. Popping corking and spitzen sparken and fizzing popping and broken down and no good, as they never said in German. So it looks as if between us, you people out there and me complaining and the neighbours complaining and BT, we seem to have cracked the problem with the interweb at least. Thank God for that. I've also had I think they call it the tower apart on this computer and cleaned out the blower fan and the heatsink. I do that every now and again anyway, and it was quite full of fluff and rubbish. So that seems to have helped. It doesn't seem to cut out anymore like it did. Yes, oh God, a friend of mine had that happen. It kept cutting out, but his tower was to a different design, and he couldn't get the fan off to clean the heatsink fins. So eventually he undid a thing that looked like a sort of brass buckle, and with that out came the whole thing: fan, heatsink, and a thing about 2 inches square on the bottom of it covered in brass pins. And I don't know much about this sort of thing, but I knew enough to know that that was the main chip thing in there, and quite a few brass pins were missing on that one. Oh dear. I bet some of you are laughing your head off now. I bet you are, and I wouldn't blame you. Oh dear, never mind. But at least for now, we seem okay. But the problems I've been having are nothing to what's been happening in Woolwich, are they? And you'd think, wouldn't you, that a soldier coming back from a shithole like the Middle East would be safe enough walking around the streets of the UK, but poor Fusilier Rigby, yes, cut to pieces by two Nigerian Islamic lunatics. What are they doing in this country? After 7/7 we should have closed the borders to keep all these buggers out. End of. And if that makes me seem like a racist and a little Englander, well, so be it, because you're obviously one of these people that wants to be offended. So if you want to be offended, well, go away and watch somebody else's channel, for heaven's sakes, or should that be for Allah's sake? Perhaps now, finally, the dewy-eyed fools that have allowed all this garbage to come into our country throughout the last few years will sit up and take note, or as they say on the other side of the Atlantic or the pond, wake up and smell the coffee. How many more 9/11s or 7/7s or Boston Marathons or Woolwiches do we have to put up with before these fools actually do something? This David Cameron, I've got problems with my spine. At least I have a spine. He doesn't. Neither does that useless fool of a Home Secretary, that Theresa May. If they had any backbone at all, they'd have slung that other Middle Eastern Islamic thug out ages ago. When the Human Rights Court in Brussels or wherever it is decided that he could be tried, they should have had an aeroplane on standby then, kicked him straight out. Or better still, just not let him in the first bloody place. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. And already the PC brigade are harping on over here. Amazing, isn't it? Absolutely bloody amazing. They're saying that some of the footage that was shown on the telly, it shouldn't have been shown because it was all sub judice. Pretentious Latin claptrap again, Who the hell speaks all that? Why don't they say what they mean, like the average person on the street does? They might not get a fair trial now, the little terrorists, and we can't boot them out to their home country in Nigeria because they might get a smack-bottom ducky-wacky. And what about their human rights are being violated? Well, to hell with their human rights. What about our human rights to ride our trains and buses, fly on aircraft, and work in high-rise buildings and ride the subway in New York, unmolested by lunatics? You won't change my view on these buggers. A few years back, I was taking a commuter train up to town, and my guard got very concerned, as did some of the passengers, about a package under the seats. It was one of the old swing door trains. So concerned did he get that he came through to see me, told me what he'd found, and that he moved the passengers out of the coach. It was the lead car. So we detrained everybody at the next station, went into the nearest yard, so it wouldn't matter quite so much if the thing detonated. I used the signal telephone to ring. I didn't dare use the radio, and the guard didn't use his cell phone because he was frightened of detonating the bloody thing, as was I. And the bomb squad, they said that, it was definitely installed by ragheads, and that furthermore the device was viable. In other words, it would have gone boom and caused absolute bloody carnage. And if I'd been sat outside one of the London terminals with a train on an adjacent track, or possibly both sides of me, you don't even want to go there, do you, about the devastation that would have caused? So you're not going to persuade me that they're sweet little cuddly Muslim terrorists, so forget it. And on that slightly cynical note, I will away. See you soon.